Donald Trump has secured all the votes he needs from the Republicans in the Senate to confirm his nomination to the Supreme Court, which he says he will announce Saturday. At the top of the list, Catholic Amy Coney Barrett. Of course, they're already trying to smear her as an extremist, but this is the result of nothing other than winning elections. The Democrats can complain all day and night, but the Republicans won the Senate, they expanded their majority, and Donald Trump won the presidency. That's it. You can argue about hypocrisy all day and night. Donald Trump's next nomination will give the Supreme Court a 6-3 conservative majority. This will reshape, or it will shape, this nation under a more conservative view for a generation, if not longer. If Donald Trump wins in November and the Senate it stays Republican and the House potentially flips Republican, well, then Donald Trump may actually have more nominations to come. Maybe one, maybe two. And think about all the laws and other changes. Now, it's possible the Democrats win, and they're warning, we will use the nuclear option. You will regret this. We could pack the courts. What does that mean? Well, how about for every Supreme Court justice you appoint to the bench, we will just add another judge. Because the Constitution doesn't say how many judges you have to have. Thus, Congress could increase the amount of judges. Well, that's a nuclear option. They're also apparently entertaining the possibility of impeaching Donald Trump to try and jam him up. And that is just ridiculous. But of course, Trump is bringing it up. I do think that point is a little ridiculous to be floating around in the media because it was George Stephanopoulos who asked Pelosi. She just refused to deny it. So I guess you can say it's floating in the back of her mind. But if you want to figure out who's at fault for this shocking defeat the Democrats are facing, then you need only ask the Democrats to look into a mirror. They can be angry all day and night about the fact that Donald Trump will now pick 3 Supreme Court justices, but it's their fault. You see, back in 2013, Harry Reid changed the rules. You used to need 60 votes in the Senate to confirm a judge, and he changed it to a simple majority. And this was a horrible mistake that, in my opinion, has damaged our country. You see, instead of working with the Republicans, who at the time were in the minority, they decided, you know what? We're not going to negotiate with you. We're just going to change the rules. There you go. Mitch McConnell said, you will regret this day, and you may regret it sooner than you think. And now he's laughing all the way to the confirmation hearing. 3 justices for Donald Trump. And now they're warning again. If you do this, we will use the nuclear option. We'll pack the courts. But wait, some Democrats have actually figured out what's going on. And they're warning. Apparently there was a conference call where they said, hey, wait a minute. If we start saying we're going to pack the courts and the Republicans keep the Senate, what if they pack the courts? Ding, they're finally starting to get it. Stop changing the rules. It will be used against you. Donald Trump has won this fight. Your battlefield is the election. What are Democrats doing? They're changing the rules again because they can't win. I find it remarkable they keep saying we're under the rule of the minority and it's not fair, but they can't win elections. You lost 3 Supreme Court seats, or at least a seat at the negotiating table, because you refused to negotiate properly with Republicans. Now I know what they're going to say. They're going to say the Republicans in 2013 refused to work with us. That may be, but you needed to figure it out. And they didn't. Instead, they said, you know what? Fine. We're going to change the rules. Listen, if the rules are as such, you need 60 votes. You should have left it alone and taken the L, because now that the rules are different, you lost 3 seats. You cut off your nose to spite your face. And now Nancy Pelosi is saying impeachment, or I should say entertaining it, maybe. And now they're saying what? Pack the courts? Congratulations. Why wouldn't the Republicans do it if they win? This is what Democrats don't seem to understand. They're not talking to me about anything. They're not saying, Tim, here's why we can't allow this. They're saying change the rules so we win. And I'm just sitting here saying, convince me to vote for you. But they won't. Let's read these stories. Let's read the news and see exactly what's going on with Donald Trump securing his victory. I mean, I think it's going to be Amy Coney Barrett. He will announce that on Saturday, and he's going to win. Of course, the Democrats are going to freak out, but what can you do about it? Before we get started, I have a very big announcement to make. Matt Christensen tweeted this, and in fact, it confirmed, yes, this is true. YouTube is going to be age restricting tons of content. And that means you basically can't share my videos if they get age restricted. And it means you will not see them if they are, unless you sign up and subscribe. I know a lot of people don't want to sign up for YouTube and refuse to, and they don't want to subscribe. This is just a warning to let you know that could effectively end all of my content. My podcast will still exist, but YouTube is the main place where I upload. If my content ends up getting age restricted and you're not subscribed and signed in, YouTube probably will not let you watch the video. In fact, they won't. And that's just a hard reality. That's the breaking news. So make sure if you really do like my content, you share this video, you subscribe, hit the like button, the notification bell, and just a heads up, I'll be doing more warnings about this, and I'll probably do a full segment on it later today. But I'm just letting you all know right now. But let's get back to the news. From the Daily Mail, Donald Trump sets Saturday as day he'll name Supreme Court picks as Mitt Romney joins Republican senators in backing the president, ensuring an election year vote on nomination. And it sounds like they're going to skip over any kind of hearings because we know what's going to happen. You see, it's not just about the Democrats' nuclear option in 2013. It's about their treatment of Justice Brett Kavanaugh. I remember when that happened, and that was radicalizing to say the least. Brett Kavanaugh, for those that aren't familiar, he's a Supreme Court justice. He's not ridiculously far right. In fact, he's sided against Trump a couple times, I believe. He has an all-female staff. I think so. I could be wrong. But this guy was utterly destroyed by the Democrats and their allies in the media. This is a guy who was a federal judge. For better or for worse, whether you like him or you don't, this guy was a federal judge. He had already been vetted in his appointment to the courts. Yet somehow they mustered up these ridiculous stories about parties with women being drugged and accusations against this guy. And when he was basically in tears during this hearing saying that they were smearing him, the media took images of his face, clearly in distress, to make it seem like he was angry and snarling and yeah. Talk about a nightmare scenario. Why would the Republicans, with control of the Senate, put any new nominee through that process, especially this close to the election? They won't. The Democrats tried above and beyond a nuclear option with Brett Kavanaugh. They attacked an innocent man with no evidence, flimsy stories that made no sense, and they ran with it. And people fell for it. And the Republicans have learned. I think we're in trouble with this. I do. You know, there's a lot of talk of civil war, and there's a lot of talk of conflict and crisis here in the United States, and we're heading towards it. We've been heading towards it for a really long time. Mitt Romney, a lot of people thought he would defect, but it wouldn't matter. You see, the court is 43 to 45, Republican and Democrat, with two independents. The independents caucus with the Democrats for the most part. So what do we get? Well, you get, if three people defect from the Republicans, you've got Collins, Murkowski, and Romney, 50-50. Doesn't matter. You know why? Tiebreaker goes to the vice president. At least I'm pretty sure. I fact check me on that. I could be wrong. So there would need to be four Republicans defecting before this would stop Trump. So Trump was on track to win no matter what. But I'm really worried about what happens to this country when you have such it is a back and forth between Democrats and Republicans with no negotiating. And it's a game of tug of war that will ultimately end with both sides being dragged into the mud. I want to bring you back in time to the story from 2018. McConnell to Democrats in 2013. You'll regret this. He was right. This is from 2018 because it's a story about a previous Supreme Court nomination and confirmation. MRC TV says, in the midst of all the liberal outrage over the thought of President Trump appointing a second judge to the Supreme Court is the fact the Democrats unknowingly made this all possible in 2013. The Democrats, who had a majority in the Senate, were led by Harry Reid, who used the nuclear option to change the Senate rules by a simple majority so the Democrats could limit the Republicans' use of the filibuster. When the nuclear option was first used, then Senate Minority Leader and now Majority Leader Mitch McConnell proclaimed a warning to the Democrats. You'll regret this, and you may regret this a lot sooner than you think. The use of the nuclear option first backfired on the Democrats in 2017, when McConnell used it to successfully approve President Trump's first Supreme Court nominee, Neil Gorsuch, by a simple majority rather than the previous approval number of 60 votes. Now, with the retirement of Justice Anthony Kennedy, McConnell will yet have another opportunity to approve a Trump Supreme Court nominee prior to the midterms, All thanks to good old Harry Reid and his Democrat buddies. Daily Wire editor-in-chief Ben Shapiro put it best. Harry Reid tweeted, "Thanks to all of you who encouraged me to consider filibuster reform. It had to be done." Ben Shapiro said, "No, thank you, Senator Reid." They couldn't just leave it alone. They couldn't. They said, you know what? Instead of working together with a larger majority to make sure there was some unity, we're just going to change the rules. They're doing that now. But I'll tell you why I said I was scared. I'm scared because what this change did was it made sure that there was no negotiating anymore. So long as you have the simple majority, you win. Now, it's great for conservatives. And as somebody, I'm particularly concerned about how far left the left is going and how crazy they've gotten. I'm not too worried about a 6-3 conservative court. I think it may end up being really good for individual states. It could in many ways weaken the federal government, but there are many instances where the federal government is dangerous, imperialistic. I mean, we've got this foreign war stuff going on. Donald Trump, however, seems to be doing a good job of negotiating peace, so I'm excited for that. Maybe these Supreme Court justices will be strict constitutionalists and will take away a lot of the federal government's power. That could be a good thing. But all I can really say is, you know what? Democrats, you've done nothing for me. You've convinced me of nothing. You've not even tried talking to me. You've only argued about changing the rules, and I sit back and watch it blow up in your face every step of the way. You want me to defend you? This is your own fault. You did this, nobody else. And now you want to make it all worse? Donald Trump and the Republicans won this fight. You need to sit back, shake their hands, take the loss and say, we're going to come back strong and fighting, and we will convince the American people. Thanks for playing. I'm inspired when I see, UFC fights, and you got these two guys and they're wailing on each other. And then afterwards, they shake hands and give each other a hug. It doesn't always happen that way, but I'm inspired when they do because they recognize they're fighting physically, but it's sport. At the end, we're trying to work together and to live together. That means we have to compromise in certain circumstances. So even these guys recognize, hey, look, I know we're fighting. I may lose, but it's all a part of the sport and it's a game. And these guys know what's up. The Democrats can't seem to get that through their heads. They can't just they can't just take the defeat. They have to make sure they burn everything down, and it hurts them moving forward. It's everything Trump could ask for. It's reflected in how the protests happen. When the protests escalate into riots, the Democrats ignore the problems until it festers, and then it emboldens Trump. The far left goes out saying, we hate Trump. What do? They make everything worse by proving Trump right. And now, the Democrats may finally be realizing what's to come if they keep trying to do this ridiculous nuclear option. Sam Stein, he tweets, new, one fear expressed by members. What if Democrats embrace court expansion and then don't take back the Senate? We've just given McConnell the basis and moral authority to go do it himself. I want to give a word of applause to the Democrats for finally figuring it out. Does that mean they're actually going to do the right thing? Does it mean they're going to say, Mitch, you put up a great fight. Bravo. You had the votes and you did it. And we'll be back next time to fight for our constituents and what we believe in. Hear, hear. A handshake and a beer. No, absolutely not. From Bloomberg, Noah Feldman. Republicans would regret replacing Ginsburg before the election. Forcing through a new Supreme Court nominee could produce a Democratic backlash none of us want to see. Yes, that's right. A Democratic backlash none of us want to see. Stop me, okay? No. Republicans want to see it. They do. They love it. I think back to what Mitch McConnell said in 2013. You'll regret it. And boy, do they, with Trump nailing 3 Supreme Court nominees getting confirmed by simple majority. See, the Republicans don't have 60 votes. What does that mean? If we stayed the way it was, if the Democrats did not go nuts, what would have happened? Trump would have nominated someone and the Democrats would say no. And so he'd say, okay, then who can we agree upon? And they would go back and forth. They would negotiate. Here's what would happen. Mitch McConnell would go to some Democrats and say, would you be okay with this person who's fairly moderate? And then they would need to secure 7 Democratic votes. Could you imagine a presidential run where some Democrats agree with the Republicans I think it might be, maybe this is a symptom of the problem, not the cause of it, to be completely honest, because the Democrats might have just said, nope, 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 nope. Republicans were doing that. And maybe the Democrats felt like there's no point in even trying to negotiate because they won't accept anybody unless they're conservative. Couldn't the Democrats have then chosen somebody that Republicans would at least say, okay, fine? I guess none of the Republicans would defect. The same is true now. So perhaps what we're seeing is a symptom of a greater problem, a growing divide between the two parties that cannot be mended. And it's getting worse every day. And we're seeing conflict and crisis. We're seeing clashes in the streets. I think if we see another Democratic backlash, as we've already seen with the change in 2013 from Harry Reid and then Brett Kavanaugh, your nuclear options do nothing but backfire. I'm willing to bet that Mitch McConnell, that the Republicans are going to keep control of the Senate. Donald Trump will likely win because the Democrats are insane. Maybe the House will flip back. I don't know. I could be wrong about this. I could be wrong. But I'm willing to bet they're going to win. I mean, that's what I see. That's what I think. And I could absolutely be wrong. I don't know what's going to happen. There might be a big red wave. The polls could all be wrong or the polls could be right. Not psychic. But I'll tell you what, if the Democrats move forward with this backlash, threatening to impeach Trump, well, okay, I got to stop there. I got to stop myself. Not threatening, but dancing around the idea of doing it. I mean, then what happens when the Republicans take literally everything? Bloomberg opinion, they say, President Donald Trump and Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell wasted no time after Ruth Bader Ginsburg died, immediately announcing their intent to nominate and confirm a replacement. Tempting as it is for Republicans to install a third Supreme Court justice during Trump's first term, it would nevertheless be a serious mistake and potentially a historic one. For Senate Republicans to go along, the result would not only likely be the long-term erosion of the Supreme Court's legitimacy as a third branch of government, but also a backlash so strong it would hurt the Republican Party itself. A mistake? No, it absolutely would not be a mistake. I'll tell you what a mistake would be. For Murkowski, I think it's Murkowski and Collins who have said that they're not going to vote. Doesn't matter. Romney said he will, and the tie would go to the Republicans anyway. It would be broken towards the Republicans. They'd win. They might lose re-election. We saw what happened with Kavanaugh. I think it was like 4 Democrats got knocked out because of what they did to Brett Kavanaugh. Regular people watched what happened and they were shocked and offended by the lies and smears the Democrats thought they could get away with. A mistake. I'll tell you what a mistake would be. If Donald Trump does not nominate someone and there's no replacement, well, then people are going to be mad at him. And the Democrats are going to be emboldened to move in because now's their chance. If Donald Trump does nominate someone and the Republicans don't confirm, then those constituents of those Republican senators will be livid and the Democrats will be emboldened. Because the Democrats will say, now's our chance to get in one of our own justices. Still, the court would lean conservative, but at least they could replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg with someone who's liberal or progressive. If the Republicans and Trump replace Ginsburg right now, the fight is over. The steam will be taken away from the Democrats. The wind from their sails gone. You already lost the war. The court is now 6-3. And they'll argue about its legitimacy. They entertained impeaching Brett Kavanaugh after the fact, but a mistake? No. Your threats mean nothing. Nothing to me, at least. And apparently nothing to Trump and the Republicans. I would only ask that the Democrats actually try to convince me instead of just threatening the American people with more conflict and crisis. Because I'll make it simple for you. All of this that's happening, it's the result, as I said, of nothing more than the election. Republicans win, Republicans nominate, Republicans vote, Republicans confirm, end of story. If you want to change the rules and threaten ridiculous, anti-democratic procedures because you just want power, it will just be used against you. And it will not be convincing me or anyone else of anything. The Republicans won fair and square. Give them a handshake, a pat on the shoulder, and say, we'll meet again in battle. Instead, they're saying no. They're sore losers. And they would rather flip the board, flip the table, and scream than accept that they have been defeated. We can't go on this way. I can't believe that they're actually writing an article saying that if they do this, here's what they say. The reason for Republicans to hold off isn't the extraordinary hypocrisy they're showing. They're not. As Mitt Romney just said in a statement, historically, an opposing party Senate does not confirm an opposing party nominee. And when the parties are aligned, they do. I personally think it's kind of dumb, but it's mostly the result of Harry Reid. You would have needed to negotiate. Well, you don't need to anymore. It's not even about this argument. There's no hypocrisy in winning elections and then doing what you set out to do. He says, we don't live in a world where voters will punish a party for errant hypocrisy. Republicans and Democrats alike all understood that McConnell was making a specious argument when he claimed the March nomination of Judge Merrick Garland was too close to the election to deserve a vote. We all knew it was power politics then, and we all know it's power politics now. No, that's just not the case. It partly is, but it partly is. Look, if Obama nominated somebody and they voted to confirm, the Republicans would say no, and the person would not be confirmed. If they needed 60 votes to do it, they needed to negotiate. It's not necessarily about power politics. Right now, it kind of is. They won. They can do it. Therefore, they do. Go vote. Go vote for the person you want. They say in a rational version of Senate confirmation politics, the party in majority thinks about how its actions will affect the other party when it takes control. Ideally, that norm leads to balance and some fairness. I don't take advantage of you, so in turn, you won't take advantage of me. In our current world of power politics, the norms have eroded to the point of near disappearance. What that leaves is medium-term self-interest about what the other side will do immediately, as opposed to what both sides would do if norms of fairness applied. Now, this is actually, I agree with. I think he's making a similar point to what I just said. We could maybe try and go back to this era where we negotiated with each other. The only problem is I don't think we are. I think that the Democrats have gone so far off the rails with everything they've done that it really does feel like, dare I say, civil war is inevitable. I'm sorry to say it. It maybe it won't be what we think it is. It won't be. It won't look the same way as other civil wars. But what the Democrats are proposing, what they've done to Brett Kavanaugh, the things that have been happening in this country are just so extreme. What side is willing to negotiate? I'll tell you this. The Republicans have negotiated with me. And Donald Trump has convinced me to vote for him because of the riots, because of his peace agreements, because he's withdrawing troops from the Middle East, because of school choice as part of a second-term agenda and term limits. I love all these things. I'll take the win. But more importantly, I recognize Donald Trump. I recognize the Republicans. They look like a political party to me, though I disagree on a lot of wedge issues that Democrats and liberals typically disagreed upon. At least there's some semblance of normalcy among the Republican Party, even if it is power politics. When I looked at the Democrats, what do I see? The Brett Kavanaugh thing was a shock to my core. Come on, it was so obvious that woman was not being honest. She had no witnesses that could corroborate what she was saying. She claimed she was scared to fly, and then when questioned, said she flies all the time. It was ridiculous. 30-year-old allegations, no witness, couldn't remember where it was or how it happened, and we had a hearing over this? We ended up seeing the Kavanaugh effect, a big boost in Donald Trump approval and support because of this. And it hit me too. I still was like, but I'm not going to vote for the guy. But the Republicans negotiated. Conservatives continually sit down with me and ask me what they have to do to earn my vote because they respect me. And that's what I ask for, respect. You don't have to believe I'm right on everything. I don't think I'm right on everything. In fact, I don't know I can't tell you what we should do in terms of taxes and fiscal policy and healthcare. I'm just a dude. I'm just a dude trying to figure out who really wants to help make this country work. And the Republicans are asking me, what is your opinion on the matter? And I say, here's what I think. And they say, well, we disagree on that, but where can we come together? And I've sat down with so many Trump supporters who have told me I'm wrong, who have insulted me. Well, I insulted my ideas and like some of the things I put forward. But maybe that's a bit too aggressive. Maybe I should say they were denigrated, like, oh, these are, stupid liberal ideas. Oh, you progressives. But we can at least sit down and have that conversation, even when it is a little bit rough around the edges. The Democrats aren't doing that for me. Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, what is going on with these people? They're mocking, they're belittling, they're insulting, and they're in the streets, they're physically attacking. So they've done nothing to convince me. So here's what I see. The Democrats once again saying we're going to upend the system. We're going to burn it down. It's the nuclear option. Once again. Have you not learned from any of these mistakes you've made in the past? Apparently not. And now I'm supposed to vote for you? There is a turtle man going, well, we have the vote secured and we're going to do it. And I'm going to be like, okay, he's right. And what are they saying on the other side? They're saying we'll change all the rules. We're going to pack the courts to negate all of your victories. And I'm just like, dude, calm down. What? None of these things are policy positions. It makes sense that the party that won gets to make the nominations. I would have preferred. I thought I was reading about Merrick Garland, and he was moderate, and he probably should have been confirmed. Fine. Well, here we are. Get the votes, but you're not going to get the votes because you've lost the plot. I bring you now to my final piece with a laugh that explains everything. Media matters for America. No, they love to smear people on the right or just anybody not left, whatever. Daily Wire host says Trump's Supreme Court nominee should be confirmed to trigger the libs. Michael Knowles says it will be very, very funny. And I laughed when I heard that. I did. Why? Because I have a sense of humor. He's right. He's right that it'll trigger them and it'll be funny. And that's why the left has really lost me. They're not funny. They're not fun. They're not having a good time. And they're not offering me any solutions. They're mocking, belittling, laughing, and just having a temper tantrum. And I look over at Michael Knowles, and what is he saying? A joke. And they get triggered by it. They're mad at the joke itself. I can talk to Michael Knowles, and we probably disagree on a ton of things, but we're going to laugh together. Isn't that what we want to strive to do? Laugh? Now, the left will say it's because Tim Pool has privilege, blah, blah, blah. I don't even want to hear it, man. You're never going to convince me that a mixed race high school dropout from the south side of Chicago who worked hard and fought every day to do better and be better is somehow, they're going to argue that I'm privileged and all that stuff. That's the argument. The only reason I could possibly laugh alongside someone like Michael Knowles or Glenn Beck or some of these conservatives is because I'm privileged. Let me tell you, man, during Occupy Wall Street, before I had any kind of recognition, they used to tell me that I was the perfect example of what was wrong with this country, that I had fallen through the cracks, that I should have a right to succeed in a livable wage and all that stuff. And that I was a good example of someone who was smart and talented, but just couldn't make it, huh? I never thought that. I was like, well, I don't see it that way. I'm on an adventure, But they were like, but shouldn't you be like running these companies and blah, blah, blah and all that stuff? And I was 25. And then after I got recognized, they said, Tim Pool is white and was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. That's what they started saying. That's literally what they started telling each other. Because the only way they could fathom that I succeeded was that I must be privileged. Not an argument. Nothing in that would convince me of anything because all you're doing is insulting me. And all of the hard work, the blood, sweat, and tears I put into everything was not good enough because you just turn around and say it's all about privilege. No, I'll tell you what it's about. I've gone through hardship and I was saved by social programs. And that made me realize the importance of them. And then I go and I see conservatives doing their normal conservative thing, for which I disagree with a bit, but they're talking to me. And then I look at the Democrats and they're screaming more, more, more. It's not enough, more. And it's wild, uncontrollable temper tantrum, rage, hatred. I don't have anything to do with it. I don't want to have anything to do with the people who are insulting Ruth Bader Ginsburg as she died. A lot of people are just thinking it's funny. I'm not a fan. I'm not. And there have been some high-profile conservatives who have made some of these jokes, but for the most part, Donald Trump and almost every high-profile right-wing personality and conservative have been respectful. That's what I want. What do we get on the left? Mocking people on their deathbeds. Man, we recently lost a very prominent black conservative. You probably heard. I'll keep it light and I'll wrap this up. And they mocked and insulted this guy, and he was awesome. I'm just so sick of that. When Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed, with respect, she lived an amazing life, and I give her that respect where it's due. And when I see people on the right suffer similar, they grow old, they die, they get sick, they mock them. It's disgusting. Some of these people getting cancer, and I'm like, man, I'm sad to hear it. And they mock them, and it's disgusting. I don't care where you're on, if you're on the left or the right, mocking people after they die and laughing and dancing on their grave. Get away from me. And we see that from the left. And we do see it from many people on the right. I don't like any of that stuff, but keep it out of politics. And Donald Trump took the high road. I wish the higher profile leftists, the blue check marks on Twitter, would do the same. I'm not going to act like it was every leftist. I'm just saying this is the problem I see with the Democrats. Have a laugh. Michael Knowles made a joke. It's funny. Donald Trump won. The Republicans won. Deal with it. I have no problem. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 6 p.m. over at youtube.com/TimCastNews. It is a different channel from this one. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.